Hello, it's me, Mike with HPDS. This video will be a reading and a study of Leviticus chapter 14. Before I get started, of course, I'd like to recite the Lord's Prayer as written in Matthew 6, and it reads, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Okay, so this is Leviticus chapter 14, and I'll do a quick recap of it. Hold on just one moment as I get everything up together. Okay, Leviticus 14. If you remember, Leviticus 13 and actually the past few chapters have been about cleanliness. Remember, I believe starting at chapter 11 through 15 is the chapters on cleanliness. Prior to that, we went over chapters about 1 through 7 were the laws of the offerings and the what did we call them? The offerings and the I'm already kind of drawing a blank here. Verses 7 was the sacrifices and the offerings, chapters 1 through 7. And then chapters 8, 9, and 10 were about Aaron and his sons and the consecrations. And of course, remember chapter 10, Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu are killed because they offer strange fire before the Lord. So the past few ones, 11, 12, 13, have been about cleansingness. Chapter 13, if you remember, was about leprosy. It was guidance for the priest discerning leprosy, of course. And chapter 14 is continuing on that same path with more on how to cleanse a leper. And I'm actually still trying to get this up, so that's why I've kind of been a little preoccupied getting lost here with what I'm trying to say. Per usual, what I will do, just to let you know, is I will go ahead and I'll read the chapter straight through, and then I'll reread it line by line, kind of going more into depth over it, based off of, how the Holy Spirit comes to me, of course. Here, though, is the overview of Leviticus 14. We're looking for, it's called the Rites and Sacrifices in Cleansing a Leper. And this is what we're looking for. It's 57 verses long. Verses 1 through 2 are establishing the laws for cleansing lepers. Verses 3 through 8 is going to be the first day of cleansing. Verse 9 is going to be about the seventh day of cleansing. Verses 10 through 20, we're going to read about the eighth day of cleansing. Verses 21 through 32, we're going to read about a poor man's offerings. Verses 33 through 42, the plague of leprosy in a house. In 43 through 47, we're going to read about the fate of an unclean house. And verses 48 through 57, we're going to see the cleansing of a clean house. And that will be the end of the chapter. So that's what we're looking for. Remember, this is the rites and sacrifices in cleansing a leper. 57 verses, and we're going to read about the laws, the several days, the offerings, the plague in a house, and the fate of an unclean house, and so forth. So again, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll read the chapter straight through, and then I'll reread it line by line so we could get a better understanding of what exactly is going on in Leviticus chapter 14. So I'll begin reading it right now. And it reads, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest, And the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper. Then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them, and the living bird, in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the opening field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off. And he shall wash his clothes, also he shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he-lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb for the first year without blemish, and 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest that maketh him clean shall present the man that is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall take 1 he-lamb, and offer him for a trespass offering, and the log of oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in the holy place, for as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering. It is most holy. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. And the rest of the oil that is in his hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the blood of the trespass offering. And the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall pour upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering, and make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed from his uncleanness, and afterward he shall kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the meat offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. And if he be poor and cannot get so much, then he shall take 1 lamb for a trespass offering to be waved, to make an atonement for him, and 1/10 deal of fine flour, mingled with oil for a meat offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get. And the one shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering, and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord. And the priest shall put of the oil that is in his hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make an atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer one of the turtle doves, or of the young pigeons, such as he can get, even such as he able to get, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, with the meat offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertaineth to his cleansing. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When ye be come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, and he that owneth the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, It seemeth to me there is as it were a plague in the house. Then the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest go into it to see the plague, that all that is in the house to be not made unclean. And afterward the priest shall go in to see the house, and he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague be in the walls or the house with hollow strakes, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house, and shut up the house 7 days. And the priest shall come again the 7th day, and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house. Then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which the plague is, and they shall cast them into an unclean place without the city. And he shall cause the house to be scraped within round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off without the city into an unclean place. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones. And he shall take other mortar and shall plaister the house. And if the plague come again and break out in the house, after that he hath taken away the stones, and after he hath scraped the house, and after it is plaistered, then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it is a fretting leprosy in the house. It is unclean. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goeth into the house, all the while that it is shut up, shall be unclean until the even. And he that lieth in the house shall wash his clothes, and he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest shall come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague hath not spread in the house, after the house was plastered, and then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And he shall take to cleanse the house 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And he shall kill the one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the scarlet. But he shall let go the living bird out of the city into the open fields, and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of the plague of leprosy and scall, and for the leprosy of a garment and of a house, and for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean, and when it is clean. This is the law of leprosy. Okay, so that was Leviticus 14 in its entirety. A pretty long chapter. And of course, what is it about? It's about more cleansing of lepers and leprosy in a house. And there's several days that you have to spend doing some things and everything. So let's go back and let me show real quick before I get back into it. Let's see. Leviticus 14, remember this is the rites and sacrifices in cleansing a leper. It's kind of long, but we're going to be looking for, this is what we're looking for right here. Remember, we're going to go ahead and read it one more time. I'm going to read it line by line, and these are the points that we're looking for. It's all about cleansing lepers. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get this started again. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, so this is, the Lord, this is God, here talking to Moses still. And he tells them, this shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest. So remember, we're bringing him to the priest, and we're at this tabernacle. Remember, this is the tabernacle right here. You come in. I think I got the wrong picture here. Let me get this other one. This is the one, tabernacle complex. This is what we're looking for. Remember, you come into to this tabernacle. This is where the priest was hanging out. You come in from the east because this is the entrance. You can see it in red. So you come in. This is where he's coming up to him. He's just coming to somewhere in this place. He goes, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp. Oh, so he's leaving the camp. And the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper. So this is, remember, the camp. If you have leprosy, so you've obviously got leprosy. And if you go back to chapter 13, you remember what happens to a leper. You have to leave the camp, and they make you wait several days to see if you're gonna, remember if it's spread in your skin and so forth. So remember, if it was spreading in the skin, the priest had to go out there. And remember, let's see, we're on 1 and 2. 1 and 2 was the law, so we're establishing the law. 3 through 8 is the first day of cleansing. So remember, they've gone out, and let's see, you're going to behold if the plague of leprosy be. So remember, after those, you go to check to see if the plague of leprosy has been healed in the leper outside of the camp. Then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds, alive and clean. So if he's clean, if it's gone, he's cleansed. Remember, so these are the first day of cleansing. So remember, he's clean. He's been, he was gone for 7 days. Remember, you had to leave for like 7 days, and then you came back and they took a look at you. And so that's what's going on. We're taking a look at him, and he's clean. And right here, this is the first day. Remember, then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds, alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. So you're getting 2 birds, and they're both alive and clean. So they got to be 2 clean birds. And remember, the clean birds, where did we read about which birds were clean and which ones weren't? We read about that in Leviticus chapter 11. That was chapter 11. We came across which fowl which were unclean. Verses 13 through 20. Back in chapter 11, we read to see which birds were unclean. So you got clean birds, though. And I don't remember them off the top of my head, but it is in chapter 11 to see which kinds of birds are clean. And you got 2 of them. You got the clean birds. You got some cedar wood. You got some scarlet and hyssop. Okay, and the priest shall command that one of the birds to be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them in the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And this is kind of interesting, because this goes all the way back to Genesis again. Remember Genesis, the story of Noah. After Noah and his children got out of the ark, this would have been what, Genesis 7, Genesis 8? I think it's Genesis 7. Remember what, or actually it's Genesis 8, because when they got out, remember they, chapter 8 of God remembered Noah, this is Genesis, and then they came out, and I know I put it in my video. If you go look at the Genesis 8 video, I do say something about, and I don't remember what I said in the video, but basically he took, as soon as they got out of the ark, the first thing he did was make sacrifices of these clean birds. Remember, so it wasn't just 2 of each kind that he took on the ark. Remember, Noah took 2 of each unclean animal, and he actually took 7 of every clean animal. And so right away, as soon as they get out of the ark, he started sacrificing a bunch of the clean animals. Remember, I'm looking for right here, verse 20 of Genesis 8. Genesis 8 verse 20 reads, "And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar." So this kind of harkens all the way back to that. So here they're getting a clean animal, they're killing it, they're sacrificing it, and then you're having to do this. You're dipping you're dipping all of this, the cedar wood, the hyssop. You dip them all in the living bird, and you dip in the blood of the dead bird, and then you sprinkle it on him that is to be clean from the leprosy 7 times. So you get that blood, and you sprinkle it onto this person that was just cleansed of leprosy, and you do it 7 times, and then you pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field. So the living bird gets to go free, even though he's got the blood of this unclean bird, of this dead bird on him, this sacrifice bird. So this is keep in mind, this is what they had to do. This is what God did, declared. So it has something to do with leprosy. So keep that in mind. Think about this. This is leprosy. We found out in the last chapter that modern people call it a bacteria. It's some sort of a bacteria. They believe it's a bacteria, and that you can get it from being in close contact with people, over time. So this is showing that somehow, God is showing that, these things that happen in our body, you can be cleansed. God cleansed us with these, seemingly, maybe you could see it if you're a doctor. Maybe you could see how this is, it looks like doctor, but to me, it doesn't really look like any kind of administering of medication that we're familiar in modern day. He's not like administering any kinds of medication. He's not injecting anything into the body as inoculation. He's not making the leper drink any blood, or like drinking any kinds of mixtures. That's not what's happening here. It's not what we know as medicine. It's, like I said, not a shot, not a pill, not even really an ointment. This isn't really an ointment, like something you put on the skin or anything. It's just some sort of a ceremony. It's the blood of a living, and blood of a clean bird, and cedar wood and scarlet, and you're just kind of just sprinkling it on the person, and they're technically already clean. So it's not that that this is healing them. It's that they're already clean, and God is pronouncing them clean. They have to go through this, and it's all part of the law. It's not even like a medical procedure as much as it's the law. This is what they had to do. It's almost, like I said, it becomes symbolic in a way. It is symbolic, and of course over the Bible we're going to see where these symbols pop up, and so keep that in mind. Lepers are kind of important. There's something about leprosy that God had to bring into his government, into his judgment, or his to his people. But keep moving on. "And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days." So now he got to wash all his clothes. He's got to shave off all his hair, which is interesting. So that's also, keep in mind that they were able to shave off all their hair 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And then they're allowed to come back into the camp, but they got to tarry abroad out of his tent for 7 days, meaning that they can come into the camp, but they're not allowed to go into their own tent for 7 days. You kind of spend time outside of your tent for 7 days. So that's also kind of very interesting. And then moving on to verse 9, which is the seventh day of cleansing. Oops. I showed the wrong video again. But it shall be on the seventh day that he shall shave off all his hair off his head, and his beard and his eyebrows. Even all his hair he shall shave off, and he shall wash his clothes. Also he shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. So you shave off all your hair on the first day, and you're able to hang out for 7 days outside of your own tent. But on the seventh day, you got to come back and shave all your hair off again, even your head, your beard, and your eyebrows, all of it. And then you wash your clothes again, and then you take a bath. You wash his flesh in water, and then he is clean. And then, of course, moving on, verses 10 through 20, we're going to read here about the 8th day. So now we're on this 8th day of cleansing, and what do we do here? He takes 2 he lambs without blemish. So this is kind of going into the sacrifice, remember? And 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering. So this is a meat offering. So remember, you're taking a meat offering, and the meat offering would have been what? Back in, that was Leviticus 2, I believe. Leviticus 2 was explaining the meat offering, so it's somehow pertaining to this meat offering. So let's see. You take this meat offering, and the priest that maketh him clean. So this is the priest that actually performed the ritual, that did all the stuff from the previous few verses. He's going to present the man that is to be made clean and those things before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So you're going to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So I guess this is, you come in and you go all the way. This looks like the door of the tabernacle right here. So you walk past the altar, past the laver. So remember, you've just cleansed yourself. In this water is where they must have done the sacrifice of the birds right here, remember? And then you're making their way into this, to the door right here. And what does he say about that? And the priest shall take 1 he lamb, so you're taking the 1 he lamb, and offer him for a trespass offering. So you got a meat offering, you got a trespass offering, and the log of the oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. So, and he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in the holy place. For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering. It is most holy. So, once again, right here, they slay the lamb just like they would the sin offering and the burnt offering. And, so in the place and the burnt offering in the whole, for as the sin offering is the priest, so they belong to the priest. Remember, these parts of this offerings somehow make it into the hands of the priests. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. So we've kind of, let me see, I had some notes. What is this all about? This is kind of like moving into, remember verses, it's back to Leviticus 8. We had verses 23 through 24, and again through verses 25 through 29. So remember, I've made mention that the way it works is that people make these offerings, and that somehow the priest ends up taking a portion. Remember, they take a remnant, they take the memorial. So part of it goes to the priest. So as the people do make sins and everything, the priests kind of profit. So keep that in mind, that's interesting. As the people sin, the priests kind of get fat. They get more and more. But that's just things I've mentioned in other videos in Leviticus. So that's kind of what's going on here. That's what that's what this verse 11 and 12 are kind of 13 are kind of pointing out. But verses moving in through 14, let's see, 15 through 18 really. Well, 14, 15, 16, and 18. 15, 16, 17, and 18. It's kind of similar to what happened to the sons of Aaron when Aaron was back in chapter 8. Let's see, what was chapter 8 about? Remember? I've got all kinds of notes over here. Chapter 8, we remember Aaron gets consecrated. Aaron and his sons are consecrated, and that's also when they put the blood on the right here, just like this. You put it on the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it on the tip of the right ear of him that is, and on the top of upon the right thumb and the great toe of his right foot. So remember, that was just like in like I said, Leviticus 8. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil and put it into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. So this was all kind of similar back in Leviticus 8, that when they were consecrating the priests, suddenly now they're making clean this leper. So that's kind of interesting. Like I said, it's kind of these priests, when they were consecrated back in chapter 8 of Leviticus, it's almost like they were being cleansed of leprosy. So that's very interesting. So these lepers, as they're being cleansed, is very similar to the priests that were consecrated. So again, remember that I made mention back in, I forget which, was it Leviticus? It could have been Leviticus 8. That right away, the first thing, it was Leviticus 8, I think right away. He's having to anoint the priests. I mean, he needs to consecrate the priests. And so basically he's coming out in Leviticus 8, and that's what I said, was that the first thing he has the priests do is kind of admit that they're sinners. They come in and they need to be cleansed of their sin. They need to be cleansed of their kind of leprosy that they apparently are being, it's kind of very similar to, they're being compared to, or they're being dealt with very similar to the priests and these lepers as they got cleansed and consecrated. It's very similar. You put that all upon the right, like I said, great toe, all that. And then the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand, he shall pour upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering and make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed from his uncleanness, and afterwards he shall kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the meat offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. So that was the 8th day of cleansing, remember? So that's very similar, that on the 7th day and then on the 8th day, we go through this kind of consecration process that was very similar to the consecration of the priest back in chapter 8. So I just find that very, like I said, he's not really treating these priests. He's treating these priests kind of like they themselves are unclean. So people have to be clean, but the priests themselves had to be cleaned as well. And their cleaning was very similar to like that of a leper. Okay, moving on, 21 through 32, we're going to read about a poor man's offering. Remember, 21 through 32, a poor man's offering. So, excuse me. And if he be poor and cannot get so much, then he shall take 1 lamb for a trespass offering to be waived. So now you can't afford all of this stuff. Remember, you needed, 2 lambs? What did you need from earlier? You needed the couple of birds, so that's exactly what you needed over here. 2 birds and what was it? I forgot already. It was 2 animals though, ewe and a lamb of some sort that he originally had to get. But now he's poor, so you can't get all of that. So you take one lamb for a trespass offering to be waived, to make an atonement for him, and 1/10 deal of fine flour mingled with oil for a meat offering. Oh yeah, you also had to get like 3/10. Remember, 3/10. You had to get that. 2 he lambs, a new lamb, and 3/10. And so a poor person doesn't have to come up with as much, though. That's also kind of very interesting. So to be cleansed, there were even poor lepers and rich lepers. Keep that in mind. You got poor lepers and clean, rich lepers, or at least, poorer lepers maybe. Let's see, and 2 turtle doves. So you get all that, the fine flour, a log of oil, and you get 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get, and the one shall be a sin offering and the other burnt offering. So still very similar. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. So this is still on the 8th day, though, just for a poor person. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the top of the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. So very similar, just for a poor person. But God is still making a distinction here for poor people that can't afford this full sacrifice, and you know what I mean. So obviously these people had to have understood how much more expensive, or how much cheaper, however you want to put it, it was for these 2 separate offerings, because I personally don't know. I don't know how much a lamb costs in those days or in modern days. I don't really know the value of a lamb in either times. In their time, or maybe the lambs back then were more plentiful. Could be that's all they were really at that point, where that was their sole income, their sole value, their sole, I don't know, whatever. That was what made them wealthy, having more lambs, more bullocks, more oxen, whatever it was that they had. But in today's age, obviously, I expect a lamb to be at least, maybe several hundred American dollars at the very least. So I don't know how much this is costing these people to be cleansed, but it is something that they had to do. And remember, those priests are somehow profiting off of these people's sins. And obviously here you see that they're taking some even from the lepers, people that need what we would say medical attention in our own day and age. But let's see. And the priest shall sprinkle with his right, I think I was still right here, 7 times. And the priest shall put of the oil that his hand upon the tip of the right hand. Yeah, I think I'd said this right here. Oh, again, the right hand. This is still more pretty much the same thing right here. And upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the toe, great toe, and upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand, he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make an atonement for him before the Lord. So very similar to just the other verses, just for a poor person. And he shall offer the one of the turtle doves or of the young pigeons, such as he can get, even such as he was able to get, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, with the meat offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertaineth to his cleansing. So remember, that was all of that's what it is for a poor person. And then moving on, now we're moving in 33 through 42, and pretty much the rest of this chapter until 57, we're going to be reading about leprosy within a house. So even houses, remember in last chapter we came across the idea that pieces of garment could have leprosy within it. So the garments themselves could be, leprosy, laden with leprosy. And here now we're seeing that even houses could do the same. So 33 through 42, the plague of leprosy in a house. So, and the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, so now we've got Moses talking to Aaron over here again. Or God speaking to Moses and Aaron. And he tells them, when ye be come into the land of Canaan, so this is in the future. They're not there yet. And, we are going to find out that they end up spending, 40 years before they ever make it out there. But Lord is telling them, when ye be come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession. And he that owneth the house, so he's telling them, when you get to the land of Canaan, and remember the land of Canaan has been promised to Abraham's seed. So Let me see. The land of Canaan was promised to Abraham. He was promised back in Genesis 15. Actually, Genesis 12, I believe. I read about it you read about it back in Genesis 12, Genesis 15, Genesis 28. I think we also come across it in Exodus 23. Yeah, chapter 23 of Exodus as well. Yeah, so we've got several places that we've already come across this, that these people are the children of Israel, and Israel comes from the line of Abraham. He's Abraham's seed, and Abraham's seed was given given the land of Canaan as a possession. So God is telling them, just continuing on with that, letting these people know. And again, this is this is 400 and something years, 430 years, I believe, after Israel made it into Egypt. And Israel, by that point, was an older man. And there was, I believe, a couple of 100 years prior to that was Abraham. So Abraham was still somewhat like 600 years after the fact. God is still speaking to his seed, and now he's coming to give them that land of Canaan. So this is a long stretch of time. It's not a short stretch of time. This is this land of Canaan is in the making. It's to be possessed by these people. It's their land. God is taking them to it. But of course, these houses can still have leprosy. So that's interesting. These houses can have leprosy. So if you come across let's see, and he's telling them, I put the plague of leprosy. So God is telling them, which I give to you for possession, and I put the plague of leprosy. So he's telling them that he himself is doing this. I'll put the plague of leprosy if you are unclean. So God himself, the Lord himself, gives you leprosy. That is also very interesting. Keep that in mind. God himself gives out leprosy. And he that owneth the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, It seemeth to me that there is, as it were, a plague in the house. So here comes the priest telling, the person that owns the house comes and tells the priest, hey, I got a house and there's a plague in this house. It looks like there's a plague. So the priest has to go check it out. Then the priest shall command that they empty the house. So they got to empty the house before the priest goes into it to see the plague, that all that is in the house be not made unclean. And afterward the priest shall go in to see the house. So basically you got to empty out the whole house. You get everything out so that it's not made unclean. So you don't want to make all those things unclean. So you pull out, and then afterwards the priest goes in to check out the house. And when he goes in to see the house, he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague be in the walls of the house with hollow strakes, greenish or reddish, which inside are lower than the walls. So of course, just like the skin, they're kind of hollow strakes, kind of like markings that are green or red, and they kind of go into the wall. They go lower than the wall, so they're deep in the wall. They're not like markings. It's not like somebody wrote on a wall. This kind of goes into the wall, some sort of a distance, just like it did with the skin back in the last chapter 13. It's doing the same thing with the wall. Then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. So we go, once again, if there's signs of the plague, then you get out of the house for 7 days and you shut it up. You just close it off. No one's allowed in. And the priest shall come again the 7th day and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house. So very similar to what's going on with the last chapter in the skin. You quarantine somebody. Remember, they had to leave for 7 days. You come back out. That's what the beginning of this chapter is about. Maybe if they were clean, that's what this chapter is about. If they weren't clean, you go back to chapter 13 to read what you had to do. And the priest shall come again the 7th day and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house. Well, that's just what I was reading. When the priest shall command that they take away, then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which the plague is, and they shall cast them into an unclean place without the city. So if it does say, if the priest says, you know what, it does have plague, go ahead and take all the stones that the plague is in, and take him out of the city into an unclean place. And he shall cause the house to be scraped within round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off without the city into an unclean place. So these people would have been making houses out of kind of like, what we would say mud houses or dirt houses. They were definitely, making some sort of mud, kind of setting it wet or making bricks out of it. But either way, they were able to scrape it kind of like rock, like dirt. They were they were able to scrape it off the insides like brick. You could think it was just brick. Obviously, it's brick. And they would take all the stuff that they scraped off. That would be the portions that was the leprous portion, and they took that dust, they scraped it, and they took it out of the city into an unclean place. That was the deal. Just very similar. Everything goes out of the city, it's unclean, you take it out. So not only did you take all the bricks that actually had the plague in it, now you also scrape the whole house, kind of all the walls, and get all the dust, and you take that out there too. And so moving on, this is still 42. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and he shall take other mortar and shall plaster the house. So you're basically taking all the bricks and you're replacing the bricks, all the stones. That's what you had to do. You have leprosy in the house. We call it now we call it some sort of bacterium. So that would make sense. If it's a bacteria would spread. You would be getting it all out, and you'd be taking all this bacteria out of the, that's what you had to do. That's what they had to do. Probably be very similar. We probably have to do in modern days. You'd go into a house, you'd have to take everything out of it if somebody was this sick with this kind of plague, this kind of leprosy. So moving on now, we get 43 through 47. We see the fate of an unclean house. So that is, I was already. So if it is unclean, so now after you've taken away the stones, you've replaced the stones, you've remortared it, you've kind of put the guts back in of this house. Okay, so now then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it is a fretting leprosy in the house. It is unclean. So even if after this it's still there, it will come back. It's a fretting. It's unclean. So now this is the fate. Remember what's going on. It's an unclean house. What do you do? So you've already replaced the walls on the inside, and now. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into none. So now you're taking actually the wood, you're taking the frame, you're taking the whole house down, the whole house. You've just destroyed the whole house. You've taken it down to the frame. Moreover, he that goeth into the house all the while that it is shut up shall be unclean until the evening. So anybody that's even working on this house to tear it down is unclean. So even the workers, the carpenters that come in, whoever's got to come tear this down, they're all unclean until the evening. So cleaning this makes you unclean. But now you've broken down the whole house, remember? And he that lieth in the house shall wash the clothes, and he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. So anybody that does any kind of, you go in there, while it's being torn down, you know how long it could take to bring down a whole house. It's probably not something that happens necessarily in one day. Could take a whole week to tear down a house like this, perhaps, and, take all of these things outside of the town and everything. So you'd be taking a while, maybe even longer, who knows. But anybody that did any work in it, anybody that's, maybe you're tearing it down and it was your house and you slept in it that night, or you ate while you were on break, maybe you're taking a break and you eat in there, you're all unclean. You have to wash your house. You have to wash your clothes. It's just part of the routine. And if the priest shall come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague hath not spread in the house after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. So now, let's see. Actually, that was 43 through 47 was the fate. So 48 through 57 is the cleansing. So here's one After you've done that, now it should be clean, right? 48 through 57. And if the priest shall come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague hath not spread in the house, after the house were plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. So I imagine if you had to do that, you still had to do it all over again, right? But you come in, brand new rocks, brand new stones, it's clean. Finally, it's clean, right? You only had to tear down the house and rebuild it. And he shall take to cleanse the house 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. So you got to still cleanse the house, 2 birds, just like we were doing earlier. You kill the one and the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. So just like you had to do, what was that? Back on the 8th day? I think that was the 8th day, right? Back when you had to do on the 8th day of cleansing. Now you have to do the same thing on the house. And he shall, and he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop and the scarlet. But he shall let go of the living bird out of the city into the open fields, and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. So very similar to with the person. You do it for the house. So that's interesting, because he's really putting... Another thing, it's very similar to the body. The house is like a body. It's like a person, and they can get leprosy. And when you clean them, you kind of have to do some things that are very similar. This is the law for all manner of plague of leprosy and scall, and for the leprosy of a garment and of a house. And I remember the garment was back in the last chapter. And for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot. And that was all from the last chapter. 13 and 14 are chapters about leprosy. And this is kind of closing it out with the leprosy portion. To teach when it is unclean, and when it is clean. This is the law of leprosy. So it is to teach you when it is clean and when it is unclean. So unclean brings leprosy. And we saw those pictures. And I won't show any of those pictures in this chapter, because that was for chapter 13. Chapter 13 had the pictures of leprosy, which are pretty graphic. I wouldn't, if you're not really comfortable with that, you shouldn't be looking at it. But that's why I'm not going to show it in this chapter. Leprosy is very bad. It's it goes right through the skin. It can deform body parts. It can deform the skin. It's very not. It doesn't look pleasant to have. But God is saying that it comes from uncleanliness. And these people were taught to understand the difference of cleanliness and uncleanliness, unclean and clean. And your whole house could become unclean with leprosy, to the point that you had to tear it down and rebuild it. And so that's very interesting, because that's saying something about the body too. What does the body mean? I mean, the body, does it get torn down and cleaned completely? Not quite necessarily, but... keep that in mind for future chapters. Remember, this is all symbolic, and we got to wonder. Remember when Jesus Christ says, he tells people that he would tear down this temple and rebuild it in 3 days. And of course, they all thought he was talking about the temple, and they say that temple took many years to build, and you're going to tear it down and rebuild it in 3 days. But they didn't understand that he was talking about the temple of his body. So it's very interesting, because right here, chapter 14 of Leviticus, we're very well seeing that not only is the cleansing of a leper very similar to chapter 8, Leviticus 8, which is the consecration of the priests, the cleansing of the house, which could be very similar to a temple. A man's king, people, they do say a man's house is his castle. So we do find out that our bodies are our temples, and later on portions of the Bible. So this is a chapter that's making the similarities between them, the body and the temple. And he's doing it through leprosy. So that's, once again, very interesting. We're all unclean. These people are unclean. They were just unclean from the get-go. They were unclean, and God was showing them the path to cleanliness. So, but I will go ahead and end this video right here. This has been Leviticus chapter 14. Kind of a long chapter, so kind of a long video. It's one of these hour-long videos. And I'll go ahead and we'll move into the next chapter, chapter 15, in the next video. And it's one more chapter kind of about cleanliness or cleanness. And it is going to be about, I'll just say discharges from the body. So it's also kind of, we all know that being clean and being unclean it can be gross. And so the next chapter kind of, continues forward with some gross things, just like leprosy is kind of disturbing. So anyway, this will be the end of this chapter, chapter 14, and I'll end it as I do all these videos. And I'll just thank you for watching the video. If you like what I'm doing, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for future chapter by chapter Bible study. And I pray that we all bless Jesus Christ, and I pray that Jesus Christ blesses all of us. Amen.